what are you guys talking to, your students about as far as being prepared based on the crazy economy? If there were to be a market crash, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a correction than, obviously an '08 event. Again, I don't think anyone's predicting that, but how are you having your folks get prepared for that?
That's a really good question, because one of the things I've been very cognizant of as a business owner is what risks are we actually taking being in this industry? And the thing is, lately, I've been seeing still quite a few ads of people telling folks, younger influencers that haven't been through these cycles, where all you got to do to have success in Airbnb is just load up on a bunch of credit cards that have, zero interest for a period of time, go rent a ton of apartments, and then you're going to be making all of a sudden $80,000 a month with little to no work. I'm not exaggerating. So,
but that's an actual training course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we might have to have them on.
Well, the thing is knowing our background, especially Michael, is like being in finance, used to be a currency trader. We're super like risk adverse, and we always in the back of your mind, you have to like mitigate your risk, right? Like that's always in there. So looking at loading up on credit cards, like we're like de-risking right now and like trying to get out of debt, and like you have to start like getting out of your debt to be able to position yourself correctly.
Yeah, because ultimately, if interest rates continue to go up, which there's very good reasons to think that will likely continue for the foreseeable future. Well, if you're highly leveraged, that's going to be a bad deal for you, right? So people that are in our training, in our class, that are deciding to own properties to do short-term rentals, well, you might want to consider fixing your mortgages if you haven't already. Now, if you have properties that are on, adjustable rates, you might want to look at maybe paying those down a little bit more, right? So you're not as leveraged or not as exposed, right? Another thing we've been telling people a lot, when you go through these periods of consolidation or pullbacks, having cash can be one of the most valuable things ever, because your cash actually becomes more valuable because it allows you to buy assets at a discount. Okay. So ultimately, what it really boils down to is you just need to be aware of what risk you're taking. And you want to make sure you're going through and actually doing a review of not only your business finances, but your personal finances as well. Like, where are you being inefficient? Maybe you have subscriptions that you're not actually using, but you're just getting charged monthly for. Maybe you need to actually go and renegotiate some contracts that could, yield you some savings there.
Yeah, it's just like essentially it comes down to your goals. What do you want to do? And then running the numbers. We call it the quote unquote millionaire math. It's just reverse engineering what you're looking for and what's the best strategy, right? If you're looking for ownership, what markets do you want to look at? Like you have to be very careful when you're starting to get into ownership, making sure those are correct short-term rental markets that you want to be going into, right? And there's a whole bunch of strategies that we teach. It's like you may want to test that market out first, and there's different tools. So it's not like a one size fits all. And that's why we coach. Yeah. Honestly, specifically, that's why we coach, to be able to guide someone through that process.
But for ourselves and our students, the final thing I would say is, for our business personally, we're not taking on like excessively expensive monthly leases right now. We're almost exclusively focusing on partnerships, because whether our economy does well, whether it doesn't, whether property values go up or go down, it literally doesn't matter when you are in a partnership.
when you're doing a revenue share, right? And you're providing a service.
No, guys, so I think that's spot on. So there's one thing that you can't coach, though, and that's experience. You guys are obviously savvy pros here at this point. You guys are able to navigate an upcoming or a looming market that you might think have some, kind of hair on the dog, or some, some rough tides in it. And you guys are going in, obviously you're going eyes wide open, but you're going in feeling confident. And that's because you guys have experience that you're able to glean from. You guys went through the pandemic. So what are some of the challenges that you guys have gone through in the past? How did you identify them? How did you overcome them? And how are you guys using those experiences to guide you through, kind of troubled waters right now, if you will?
Yeah, that's a good question. And specifically in our market, how we've built our business over the last 3.5, almost 4 years now. In our specific area where we're at, we're in, Edmonton, Alberta, and that market specifically, it's actually never been that great over the last, I know everyone's like, oh, this big recession's coming now. And I'm like, our area, we lost a lot of our oil people in our area. And we actually crashed in a recession almost 5 years ago. So we've built our business in a recession, essentially within our specific market. So for us, we're quite confident because we're able to actually grow all throughout that. And then also the pandemic within it as well. So with that experience is being, I would say, flexible and just being like, honestly, being hands-on and just really looking and knowing the strategies to actually get the margins you need and to be able to make sure it works as a business, as a long-term sustainable business. So for us, I would say the biggest challenges was definitely our market in our specific area, because the oil had pretty much left Alberta is essentially what happened. So, and that was our main industry. So that was our recession already. And so we had to figure out a way to like change that.
It's starting to come back now, but I mean,
now a recession. So, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And COVID was really tough. When COVID hit, we lost $40,000 in bookings almost overnight. Mm-hmm. So that was a big hit when we had started, and just really being able to navigate through those times and making sure it was structured to have that risk mitigation.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing though is like whenever you're punched in the face or punched in the gut or something happens that's not to your expectation, which, by the way, if you're running any business of any kind,
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, right?
Almost every day. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Just be prepared for it to happen.
If it were easy, everyone would do it. We've talked about that.
So, I mean, what do? Well, you just take the next logical step forward and you just keep going, right? Because ultimately, the alternative is you can just simply quit. You can simply give up. And then, well, what's your alternative then? Well, then you got to go back to a reality that's probably not favorable to you right now, which for a lot of people watching this is probably working a job you don't like, working for someone you don't respect, or they don't respect you or treat you all that well.
You're going for dollar per hour again, you know, you're not controlling your income, you're over someone else, you know, you're working for the man.
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, like from our perspective, like we deal with lots of shit on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, whatever, but we don't take shit from anybody anymore. So that's the biggest thing.
That's the biggest difference, I would say. And honestly, probably one of the greatest like worries or challenges that you were mentioning. So definitely, I mean, the recession, we've already kind of been through one in our own market. Pandemic still kind of even going on, even though it's not going on. But probably another one, honestly, was just the running of running of the day-to-day. So we're currently at 44 listings, you know, and just being able to make it scalable. It is quite an active business strategy, but one of the challenges is making, you know, as we scale, the involvement of us being in it actually goes down. So that was an interesting challenge to figure out. And that's exactly what we found out with, you know, systems, team members, to actually make it passive. Because a lot of people say passive, but it's really just creating another job for themselves, right? But we wanted it to be truly passive without our involvement and growing and scaling without us. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges. And that's what we actually harnessed and really figured out. And that's what we put into our training to help others with as well.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And when you go through things like that, you know, I'm full-time entrepreneur. I'm 25 years at this point, and there's still going to be things that I haven't seen, but I've seen most, you know, even across multiple industries. And I've been punched in the gut, and I've gone through the pandemic, you know, and some other things. But I've always felt, and it sounds like you guys are the same way, when you come out of those things, you just feel so galvanized. It's like, all right, I made it through that. You know, what's next, right? And so when you have that kind of bring it on mentality, and I love the anecdote you guys said, you know, what was it? You get shit every day, or shit happens every day, but you don't take shit.
We deal with shit, but we don't take shit from anybody at this point.
Right. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to steal that from you. I'll give you full credit, of course. Guys, what's a parting shot that you could give us if someone is on the fence right now? They may be a little bit apprehensive about moving forward. You know, what would you say to them to maybe make them at least reach out to you and see if it's a good fit, but maybe make that leap of faith as well?
I would say to anyone that's currently watching this and has curiosity about how this all works, but maybe, you know, just there's those thoughts lingering in the back of their mind about, you know, what if this happens or that happens, or ultimately at the end of the day, like our philosophy on life and business and everything that we do, you are responsible for your results and your success or your failure, right? So it all depends on where you want to be in the next number of years here, because we're all riding two curves. We're either riding the success curve or the failure curve, okay? Choosing to do nothing is definitely a strategy, but I'll tell you, with everything that's coming at us at, you know, 100 miles an hour, it's probably not going to be the best way to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah. And one of the other things I would say as well is our best students that come through here are ones that are willing to take action and be coachable and trainable. And a big thing through this, like Michael said, is the responsibility of it. So when people even hop on a call with us being like kind of tire kickers or things like that, it's like, honestly, like you have to look at yourself in the mirror before you even have a discussion with us, because you have to be ready to change your life. Is essentially sometimes we say we're not even in the coaching or, mentorship business, we're in the transformation business, because what you're going to learn is something completely different. And if you're already there, you wouldn't even be having our coaching or training, right? But to really shorten that learning curve, training and coaching and having that one-on-one mentorship, that's what's going to move the needle. And that's what we've seen time and time again. And that's why we specifically coach to help that.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, every level that you get to in a business, we like to say every level has a new devil. Okay. There's always going to be different challenges. There's always going to be different obstacles that come. Because the first thing is when you first start is you need to get the business going. You need to have money coming in the door, and then you need to survive for the next year or two and make sure you don't run out of cash. Once that's stable, you have consistency, then you need to leverage yourself out of that business so you can continue to grow and scale it. So that's a whole other challenge, because it's like now you have to reorient your actions and role in the company.
Yeah,
right?
and we have mentors ourselves, and I've never seen a different kind of opportunity to actually shorten that learning curve with it by doing it on my own. It's like if you're ready to go and you're ready to do it quicker, but in a safe environment and that known process, mentorship is definitely for you.
Michael and Katrina, always a pleasure to have you guys here on the channel. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. Love to have you back on here in a couple months. We'll talk about the market again and see what's happening. Thanks for joining us on the video, guys. See you next time.
Thanks so much for having us. Take care.